Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Florida 2030 briefing. Today's briefing is being recorded. At this time, I'd like to turn the conference over to Mr. Doug Davidson, the Market Executive of Bank of America and the Chair of the Florida Chamber Foundation.
Thank you all for joining us today for an exclusive Florida 2030 briefing. My name is Doug Davidson, Market Executive of Bank of America and Chair of the Florida Chamber Foundation. Today we are going to walk you through an overview of the broader themes, risks, challenges, and more importantly, the opportunities that the Florida 2030 report has identified. As you leave this call, we want to ensure that you are armed with the talking points you need to champion this once-in-a-decade research initiative at a local level. At the end of this call, we will share rollout information and arm you with the next steps on the release of each chapter and pillar. Each of you has played an important role in this process, whether by investing your time, investing your talent, or investing your resources. And so I'd like to thank each of you for your commitment to truly securing Florida's future. I'll now turn over the call to Mark Wilson, President and CEO of the Florida Chamber of Commerce.
Thank you, Doug, and thank you to everyone for joining us on the call today. I'm Mark Wilson, President and CEO of Florida's Chamber of Commerce. As Doug mentioned, today we'll hear an overview of the Florida 2030 project, the next iteration of the Florida Chamber's Cornerstone Report series, and a multi-million-dollar 3-year research initiative that seeks to lay the blueprint for Florida's next strategic plan. Throughout the past 3 years, we have heard from more than 10,000 Floridians, traveled to each of Florida's 67 counties, and held more than 80 town hall meetings to gather the research that you'll hear about today. Before we get started, a special thanks to each of you who have committed to the Chamber Foundation's mission to focus on the long-term needs of Florida through data, research, and solutions. As many of you know, today is the Florida Chamber Foundation's 50th anniversary. Yesterday, the Chamber Foundation was presented with a resolution from the Governor and the Florida Cabinet, and it was a great opportunity to share our story and the impact the Chamber Foundation has had over the last 5 decades. The Florida Chamber Foundation originally began in 1968 as an education foundation, but quickly realized that the business community had an even larger role to play in securing Florida's future. In 1989, we launched our first Cornerstone Report, a blueprint for Florida's future that would become a once-every-decade report, and it's led entirely by Florida's business community. We went on to create reports that changed the course of economic development in Florida by creating Enterprise Florida. We strengthened the role the business community plays in Florida's education systems. We imagined Florida as a global leader in trade and logistics. We brought light to the impact businesses can have on driving economic growth, and nearly 30 years worth of research later, the Florida 2030 report we are going to look at today. As I mentioned earlier, the Florida Chamber Foundation's mission is to look toward Florida's long-term future, and we do this through data found on the floridascorecard.org and through the research projects many of you have played an active role in. By the very nature of our work, we're often called on to address the short-term issues that face our state. But for perspective, as of today, we're only 12 years away from 2030. That's just 12 years away from a future that depends on skills, jobs, technology, and innovations that don't even exist yet today. At our 2018 Economic Outlook Summit, our chief economist predicted that Florida would be a $1 trillion economy this year. But while our economy is strong, there are risks that we need to ensure we're aware of. In terms of political risk, 2018 is an election year, and both major political parties appear more interested in getting reelected than continuing to advance the jobs agenda where we pass real legal reform. The risk of losing consistent leadership. Florida has had 8 years of consistent leadership. Governor Scott has made it clear that every decision that our chief executive makes will be based on what the decision means for jobs. Who knows who the choices will be for governor, but we already know that some of them are pushing for policies that are not pro-jobs. The ticket to the White House in 2020 is directly impacted by who wins the governor's mansion in 2018. What is the legislature signaling to Florida's job creators? Well, last year, there was a significant lost opportunity due to the signals that were coming out of the legislature. In order to move in a positive direction, Florida needs to stop sending anti-business signals to job creators in other states and to Florida businesses right here. In terms of global risk, Florida's economy is tied to the global economy, risks that are out of our control. And Florida relies on visitors and foreign direct investment. In terms of the rise in cost of living and the cost of doing business here in Florida, California and New York's costs have skyrocketed. New York's population is the same as Florida's, but government costs twice as much per resident. And if the legislature continues to increase homeowners insurance, auto insurance rates, and fails to fix Florida's broken legal climate, these self-inflicted wounds will make Florida even less competitive. Everything that we do in 2018 and 2019 will matter in 2030 and beyond. To share some of the broader trends that are found in our report, I'll turn it over to Tony Carvajal, who serves as Executive Vice President of the Florida Chamber Foundation.
Mark and Doug, thank you so much for kicking us off today. I was very excited yesterday to be at the Cabinet meeting in celebrating the 50-year anniversary, and I'm even more excited today when I see the list of names that are joining us on this call and also the folks that have made so much for Florida possible. Up on the screen, I can't go any further without thanking folks that a few years ago took a risk and made an investment in Florida's future by supporting the Florida 2030 project. What these folks and what each of you on this call have made possible is something that has been built over the last 2.5 years. Just so that we kind of level set here. Because of your investments, because of your energy, because of your insights, we have been able to secure researchers that have looked at not just at where Florida is today, but where Florida is going to be and where the globe really is going to be over the future. We've traveled the state. As Mark mentioned, we had more than 80 town halls and engaged more than 10,000 Floridians in a conversation where they not only talked about where they are today, but what they imagine for themselves into the future. We've had interviews with executives across the state where they told us about the economic outlooks that they have for today and tomorrow. And we're building now on the rollouts and the reports so that we can stay engaged. At the end of this call, Brandy Brown is going to share some information about the rollout strategies and ways that you can get engaged. But for now, let me just talk about what we're going to, what the reports are going to start suggesting and highlighting, and what we can do over the next 2 years. Mark, I appreciate you framing it so well in terms of the risks as well as the opportunities. The elections are going to change things. And for those of you who are on the call, we want you to be on the ground. This is not a very wide call. What we did was invite the leaders who have invested and made a difference in the organization, and we want you to be on the ground helping us prepare for the change that's ahead at the state and the local level. We need you to help make it real, because how we will work and how we will live and the risks and the resources that are available to us at the state level, at the local level, heck, even at the national level, are going to be radically different. The town halls told us some interesting things. For example, that the communities across the state don't always see themselves able to stand alone. That's okay, because we're here to unite them together. It's a daunting task. It's not just about, Florida growing to 26 million by 2030 and the 2 million jobs, net new jobs that we're going to need. We've got that covered. We've got conversations already going on in every community, and I see so many of the chamber execs that are on this call. We know that you're using the FloridaScorecard.org to identify where you're at today and how many net new jobs your own county is using. For those of you who are not already doing it, you might even go to the FloridaScorecard.org now and discover some of the things that your local area needs to focus on. The reports have been focusing on a number of different issues, not just about the immediate, but about tomorrow. As I mentioned, it's a daunting task. We're moving into a world where 5 of the 7 billion people between here and 2030 are going to be under the age of 65. While Florida needs a net 2 million jobs across the globe, we're going to have 1.8 billion jobs needed to satisfy the demand. There's going to be 1 billion new consumers worldwide by 2030. 45% of the Fortune 500 companies are expected to be placed in emerging economies today. That means that our competition is not just another state, it's not even a region, it's across the globe. Half of all of our current jobs, and I'd actually even argue that more, are going to be automated or disrupted in one way. Some things that the report's going to highlight when it comes out: 30 billion connected devices by 2020 are already going to start changing the landscape. And the projections are that there's going to be something close to 140 billion connected devices or sensors by 2030. The future of work is going to change, not only by the nature of employment, for example, moving a little bit more to the gig economy, but also the location, sometimes even virtual in nature. Cognitive and non-routine jobs can already be outplaced. 60% of all current jobs can somehow be adapted in some way. But it's not just about the way we work. While we're innovating work and markets, we're also innovating our home front. We've seen the diversity and the changes that are going on, and yes, our state is aging in interesting ways. A quarter of our residents by 2030 are going to be over the age of 65. But millennials are also going to be the largest generation, and immediately behind them is another generation that's going to redefine how we think and how we work in a new world. Demographics are going to change. 90% of residents are going to live in different places. We already are approaching 90% living in urban spaces. And there's going to be significant growth potential for inland Florida. How are we going to deal with that? That's going to impact our resources and our availabilities of what we are able to apply to situations. What we have today and how we are exposed is going to change over time. As Mark mentioned, Dr. Jerry Parrish announced at this year's Economic Outlook Summit that Florida this year will become a $1 trillion economy. We are already significant, and we have a lot of potential resources that we can apply to situations. When you think of another stat that will be highlighted in the Florida 2030 report, that by 2050, $30 trillion of intergenerational wealth will be transferred, will change hands over time. Florida is home to many of the folks that control these dollars. The question is, can we keep them here? Can we keep them here to address some of the challenges that constrain public finances and even that address the current household debts? The risks that we know and we enter throughout the year are going to change. But those risks are not just to our coasts and to our growth. It's also the signals that we send to the markets and to the challenges. As we've moved forward on this Florida 2030 research project, one of the first things we did was we wanted to level set our 6 pillars and make sure that they were still meeting the needs of that we're going to need between here and 2030. And I'm happy to report that as we've marched ahead, we did identify that this is the type of strategy, the type of plan that can get us there, that can address the disruptions ahead. You're familiar with the 6 pillars, so I'm not going to go deep into them, but I do want to highlight a few things. You'll notice that we've laid out so that we can highlight the goals of the project a little more clearly. We've always talked and focused about competitiveness, prosperity, and vibrant and sustainable communities, but now we have some specific goals, and these goals are not just about the state of Florida. This is about every community across the state. How do we ensure that Florida moves from the 16th largest economy right now to the 10th largest economy? Just as context, for many of you that are on this call have been working with us for a little while, in 2010, we were the 22nd largest economy, so we've made progress. But at the same time, the rest of the world is competing for the same spots, for the same opportunities, for the same challenges, and there are new competitors that are rising here. The drive forward is not just about competitiveness and making it better for business, but ensuring a path to prosperity for every zip code in Florida, for every Floridian, making sure that we are ensuring their future state. And as we consider the vibrancy and sustainability, we want to make sure that it's not dictated from above. So our goal is to ensure that every community, every region, every part of our state, and for that matter, every Floridian has a path, a plan for their vibrant and sustainable community. The 6 pillars still align with and the key drivers are going to deliver us a path for one voice, at the state and local level. I want to highlight a few things here. For example, for those of you who have participated in the planning, you know some of the particular items, but I'm going to share some ideas from each particular pillar and then tie them together on some uniting themes. Our talent is still about leading and attracting and retaining the best talent in the world. We're re-emphasizing the focus on the cradle to career and beyond. We've got to make sure that we're prepared for the rigors and the rate of change so that innovation, and by the way, all trades that are needed to build the future of Florida is available to us. We've heard the messages that it's not just about STEM, but also about building the world of tomorrow. In terms of innovation, we need to continue to diversify and drive to a new and sustainable economy. This isn't just about domestic competition. It's not about global competition. It's actually sometimes not even place-based. The cloud and virtual fronts are going to be sometimes our friends and sometimes our challenges. We've got to make sure that the investments to the inputs of innovation and the signals we send to the capital and job creators and talent is pointing as Florida as a great destination. And we've got to consider this for all Floridians. It's easy if we just focused on the K-12 system or the pre-K to career system, but there are a number of us that are beyond those timelines. So we've got to think about how to evolve an economy and innovate a world for all Floridians. Growth, leadership, and infrastructure is going to matter as much as ever. Connecting to global markets is just as important as connecting across town. Ensuring roads and paths that move people and goods and markets and make more and multiply their impact are important. It's not just about trade lines, it's also about the information highway. But it's also ensuring the supporting systems that make Florida one of the best places to live, work, play, learn, and do business. That's water and energy and all of our community systems. The business climate must be designed for responsiveness and competitiveness. In many ways, we are already great, but in some notable ways, we are not. We've got to continue to focus on the cost and the supporting structures and the legal climate and the signals, because we must align with our civic and governance systems. This is not just about being the best in class in talent and infrastructure and business. This is about ensuring that our systems of government help, not impede free enterprise, that our citizens are engaged, that they understand how their votes and their volunteer time and their philanthropy and the organizations and communities that they are part of deliver that world of tomorrow, but also how they deliver quality of life and quality of places for a great state. We're going to continue to create healthy, safe, diverse places with sense of place attached to them. This is going to require a full range of arts, culture, and heritage, but most importantly, one of the key messages that you're going to see in the report is how we've got to tell the Florida story and build the Florida brand. In many ways, we are great, and we've got to let the rest of the world know that. I'm going to switch quickly to some of the items that have come across and cut across the 6 pillars. I think one of the challenges of the 6 pillars is when you look at the image, it seems like silos. And I'm really excited about how this report starts talking about the ecosystems that need to be created, the cross-cutting themes, the recurring items that come across. And you're going to see this as part of every particular pillar. Starting at the very top left of this design, what you'll see is talent is at the core. We must remain the destination for the best and brightest, and we've got to recruit and retain those folks here. And we've got to have, as the second circle indicates, great places and great spaces. That's natural as well as made environments. This is not just about the rich and the warm positions that we've got here in the state, but positioning for future vibrant and sustainability. This is not monolithic, of course. It is about competitive structures. As we build that, we've got to ensure that it's a value-added and innovative economy that we are moving forward. Now, one of the things that we found as we shared this across the state is that people were wondering if that means that we're going to stop thinking about our legacy industries, and absolutely not. I think as we're looking into our future, it is not just about new enterprises. It's about making sure that our legacy industries persist. But everything adapts, and that innovation is at the core, that we've got capable people and capable systems. One of the things as you read the reports and as we go through the project, you're going to notice that one word really stuck out, and that was talent. But if there was a second word that really came out, it was connectivity. And that connectivity was not just about infrastructure and global trade and moving across town. It was about communications and making sure that talent to talent and technology and the connections that are needed were present for everybody across Florida. This is about natural and needed resources like water and land and energy and connecting people, places, and businesses. It is about the path to prosperity for people and communities. In the fifth circle, I was pretty excited to see one of the current themes is exactly the same ones that we had from our earliest cornerstones, making sure that Florida's global potential is recognized because it matters. Over time, we've extended the conversation of our global role with the talent and logistics conversations, but there are new conversations. It's not just about being a gateway, but it's the ports of entry, the points of entry for talent as well as business and goods. It's not just about being the spoke, but about being the hub. To compete and lead we need to be central, not just in the regional level and at the country level, or for that matter, even in the Americas. We have to lead at a global level, and sometimes in the world of technology and innovation as well. We live in a world of nanoseconds, and that's for markets and sensors, and everything moves quickly. We must move at the speed of opportunity as well. Innovation is not just about skills, but it must be our mantra. Regions are not bound by invisible lines on borders or maps. It's about free enterprise and the fluidity that is out there. So we require responsible folks to be thinking about how we're going to continue to collaborate at the speed of opportunity. It's a world of bits and bytes. And one of the comments that I heard as we were going around the state was that we don't want to be one of those zeros. We want to be the one. I really enjoyed that notion. Stringing all these things together is a focus on agility and resilience. A decade ago, we talked about the importance to be agile and resilient throughout this, and we introduced a notion that's going to be reemphasized in this report, and that's a commitment to managing change or changing together for one state. There are some core principles that still apply. We're going to continue to look long-term over the short term. We're going to make sure that the entire state, that individuals and partners have one voice. We're going to assert that everything remains measurable, accountable, and transparent, and we're going to do our best to help you align resources across the state. We're going to remain committed to the Florida Chamber's strategy of vision, action, and leadership, and we're going to help state, regions, localities, and individuals have a bias towards an action to the future. You all have given much already to Florida's past. But the reality is, as we're moving forward, we're thinking about what we can each do for the next generation of Floridians, and more will be asked and demanded of us. I'm going to thank you dozens and dozens of times between here and the Future of Florida Forum at the end of September, and that's because of everything that we've done and everything that we've been able to create. But I'm also going to challenge you to continue to work to secure Florida's future. On this call, we're going to end in just a few minutes, but before we did, I wanted to make sure that we presented what are some of the next steps. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to our Chief Operations Officer at the Florida Chamber Foundation, Randy Brown. Randy, thank you so much. Tell us a little bit about the next steps.
Thanks, Tony. So for moving forward for the rollout for this report, in order to ensure that the insights that are included here can be shared with the regions and with the communities so that they can implement them for their future planning, we're going to have a road show for the next year or so. So as you can see on this next slide, we are planning 17 rollouts. 11 will be regional. And so we will cover as much of the state as we possibly can. Those regional rollouts will really focus high level across all 6 pillars. And then we will do individual pillar rollouts. So 6 of those where we will really dive deep into those pillars, talking through each of the zones and all the recommendations within those areas. And then lastly, we will have one comprehensive rollout at the Future of Florida Forum, which is scheduled for September 26th and 27th in Orlando. We encourage you to go ahead and register for that. You can find registration on our website. And also, you can sign up for several things. Here's how you guys can help us. On this website here on your screen, you'll find a form that you can fill out and select the different areas in which you can work with us on these rollouts. from serving on the host committee of one of these events, to sponsoring the rollouts, and then also inviting the Florida Chamber Foundation to present the Florida 2030 report at your annual meeting and conferences, and then also to register. This is a website you can share with your colleagues, with your contacts in your communities, and we hope that you do, so that we can have as many folks be a part of this process as possible. Again, if this is going to be the strategic blueprint for the state, we need all of our local elected officials, the community leaders, and the business leaders from all counties to participate and to engage with us with these rollouts.
Thank you, Brandy. Mark, Doug, thank you so much for all your leadership on this process. Looking forward to speaking with each of you as we go forward on this process. We wanted to provide you a quick briefing of what our strategy is for Florida 2030, but we know that there's probably as many questions as there are answers from this call now. So what we'd invite you to do is not only use the florida2030.org site to tell us a little bit more about what you want to participate. I'm inviting you to contact us directly and let us know what we can do, what we can answer, how we can engage you, whom else we must be reaching out to so that we can make an impact for the future of Florida. Those of you who have made investments of time and talent and treasure in this process, thank you. But there's much more work to be done. We appreciate each of you listening on today's call. I hope that you are already excited and thinking about how we're going to come into your communities. And with that, I invite you to reach out with any particular with any particular questions as you go forward. Look forward to seeing you over the coming months as we come into your region. And thank you so much for agreeing to participate as we go forward. With that, we'll end this call. And if you need us, give us a call directly at the Florida Chamber. Thank you.